In this part of the tutorial, we're going to be covering how to lay textures down for our creature. We're going to go through a couple of techniques that you can use to take simple JPEGs of high-res skin that you may own or you have purchased. We're going to talk about how to quickly implement them into your Photoshop project. Let's get to it. So let's continue with our texturing. So our eyes look pretty good. I think they're at a good place. I may go in and tweak them, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit later, but for right now, I think we're okay. I also want to kind of push the teeth. I think we're almost at the point where we can jump in and deal with the teeth. Just having a glance at the eyes, looking at it critically, I can see some things I do want to change for sure on each eye, just to make sure that they don't feel wonky or looking all over the place. So I always want to take the time to review my work and be very, very critical of it. So let's start bringing in some textures. That's the next step. So here's a JPEG that I have of a texture that I've taken of an iguana. I believe it is. I have so many, I don't remember exactly where they come from or which one it is, but this is really good. It's very interesting. It's very robust. It feels like it's popping off of the page. It already has highlights. So I want to use that to my advantage. There are a couple things we can do to take advantage of what we could look at as flaws in the texture. So I'm going to make this a live layer by double clicking, click OK. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to deal with the color and we're going to deal with the values. So we go to adjustments here and we go to black and white. Now this is just one way of doing it. I'll probably show you 2 or 3 and there may be many more, but this is a good way for me. So the next thing I need is my levels, Control L to get to my levels. And I want to push and get some flat black and whites in. And my in-betweens, I want to keep those to a minimum. And just push my input level. Take a look at it. It's looking pretty good. Take down the highlights a little bit more. And once you start to deal with your levels, you'll be able to tell what it is you want and how you want to convert your samples, okay? So you'll have your own style and what works for you, but it really just comes with practice. I can visually look at this and know exactly what I have and how I want to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my library as it loads up. The first thing I want to do is I want to convert this to a smart object. Oh, here's the problem. Looks like I can't see, so I don't know if this is a Photoshop error. Yeah, that's a me error, so let's undo that. What I had to do is turn the opacity up to 100 and make sure that it's clear. So I'm going to drag this right out of my library onto my painting and just kind of take a look and say, yeah, I think this fits for the genre of creature that I'm creating and working on right now. So it's looking pretty good. I think I can really use this. I'm trying to figure out in my head which angle is going to be best, which way would it make sense for the textures to lay. And we'll do some generic warping. We don't want to push it too far. We don't want a lot of stretched textures because that usually doesn't look very good. So we want to make sure that we just push and get with the warp in the direction or the shape of the body. All right. So let's go ahead and move this. Just want to tweak it a little bit. And at any point, I can always undo. If I feel like I've gone too far, if I feel like the texture's being stretched, I'll just take a step back and redo and start from scratch. I'll always rather be safe than sorry. So let's go ahead and manipulate the layers and see what this looks like as an overlay. And I'm going to just hit my down arrow key, up arrow key, and check and see which one works best. I want to say 8 out of 10 times overlay is going to be best. I prefer overlay when it comes to laying down texture on top of a sketch. So this is working pretty well. I also want to make sure I don't lose the details, right? So let's turn this layer down and push the levels again so we can make those adjustments while we're actually in the working palette too. There we go. This is pretty good. Not too much, not too little. I think we're doing well here. All right, so I'm just going to slide this over, hitting Control, grabbing the layer, and then I'm just going to Control flip it and place it on the other side. Control T, I'm sorry, not Control flip it, Control T. I'm going to place it on the other side and make sure that it looks good. And let's start to clean it up. Now, as I work on this project, in between, I'll come back and I'll tweak these individual layers. Sometimes you can't see problems this early. So I'll go back and make adjustments. And as I told you earlier in the tutorial, I said that I don't spend a lot of time naming my layers because I want to run through this thing really quickly and just get it done. There we go, nice and clean. And I can take the flow down or the opacity down to give a better blend. Yeah. Just stick with the eraser. There we go. Let's take this down a little bit. And it'll give me a nice transition back into my drawing so I don't lose those details that I have. And based upon what it is you're looking to do with your drawing, you can adjust the brush. Right now I have mine at, I believe, about 45. So let's go over here and do the same thing on the other side. Just going to select this texture here. Make sure I have the right one. And I'm just going to throw a mask on this time so that I can go back and forth just in case I don't like it. Here we go. Grab the brush. Oh, got to switch to my black. Need my black color in order for the mask to work. And let's just clean it up. And sometimes I prefer a mask even when if I'm running through a project and, just hacking away at it and getting it done. A mask allows me to just undo a couple of things and just see how things will look. So it's called non-destructive workflow, a non-destructive workflow. And this is where I can reverse it and go back and place it back. I'm not really erasing the texture. I'm just covering it with the mask. And so if I ever want to reverse it later on, if I want to extend the mask, it's very easy to do. So here we go. Making sure that I make it to the edge. And making sure that everything is nice and clean. And I don't mind a little bit of dirt or a little bit of dirty in what I'm doing because sometimes that'll give us those happy accidents where we'll see a shape or a scar or a skin fold and we can just push that skin fold. So right here is a good example where it's like, hey, why don't I take those ridges on his skin and have the texture show more vibrantly on the ridges, which would make sense because that's the higher point, right? So there we go. All right. So we'll speed it up a little bit and just get those textures laid down. Continue to move. And you'll see that the technique is repetitive. We clean and push and we check and see if that's working for us or not. And we go from there. So I left a little bit, but actually this is my airbrush when I should be using my eraser. So that's a problem. There we go. Now we're just going to erase that out very quickly and clean up those edges again. Take a look. It's looking pretty good. Let's see. A couple spots that I missed. Okay, so I did a quick pause, and what I did was created quite a few textures that I can use throughout the project. So I just loaded up my library, and now we have the textures. I didn't want to make you guys watch me create each one, but I simply used the exact same technique. I first converted to black and white. Once I converted it to black and white, I then went in with the levels and pushed to get the shapes, or in this case, the wrinkles that I was looking for. So this worked out really well for me. This is a really nice texture. I feel like I have folding, wrinkled skin from a lot of movement, and it certainly feels alien. It doesn't look like anything that you see every day, but it's actually just elephant skin folds. So let's go through a couple options. And once again, it looks like it's going to be overlay. Overlay looks like the best one. So let's go ahead and clean this up with a mask. And there we go. Turn my brushes up a little bit. They're a little too low to show clean erasing. So and just the same technique we used before, really just, creating a nice clean edge, but we don't want it to be hard and crisp. So I use the airbrush instead of a solid brush. So we get a smooth transition. And it feels more natural. So if we have these really harsh transitioning lines, it'll hurt us. So notice what I've done. I reversed my mask and I've gone back in and painted some of the texture into the other parts. And this gives us that transition, and it gives us a cohesive piece. So, and that's something, that's what we consider a happy accident, what we call in the industry a happy accident, where, I didn't erase something properly, but I liked the way the texture looked on top of the original sketch. So why not add it? So just reverse my mask and pushed just a little bit. So turn on my ambient inclusion to take a look at it and see how it's going to look. I really like that. I can't wait to get toward the final. I'm really excited to see how this is going to turn out. And so let me reload my library. For some reason, my library is not refreshing properly, but that's okay. I just hit the refresh button manually, and it allows me to work. So here is a texture that I created from a picture of an orange peel. And so I'm going to use this as a texture for the skin. Really, really like the quality, but let's use this for the mouth, actually. Start to build out the mouth with this. Give it a nice wet look. And it keeps it from appearing to be flat. So this is good. And in overlay, you can see already how that makes it a much more dynamic piece. That section kind of comes to life immediately. So this is certainly going to work for us. Just get it in position. How much detail do I want? The smaller it is, the more I get in this area. And so turn it down just a little bit. Throw a mask on, and we're ready to erase. There we go. And just clean that up. Make sure that it doesn't overlap too much. So I want to create the illusion of a gum area, a gum line that wraps into the jaw of this creature. And we have it. So when we come back, we'll continue to work on the textures, and eventually we'll slide into creating the mouth.